I am 1 in 4. I am 1 in 4. I know for many of you watching, that's a foreign concept. You don't know what that means. But what it means is 1 in 4 women will lose a baby during pregnancy, during delivery, or during infancy. And infancy goes up to age 1. Another statistic is roughly about 24,000 babies in the US are born still. You may ask, what is a stillborn baby? Well, that's a baby that dies in utero. Usually they say, and again, I'm no doctor, this is what I've been told on my own journey, but um, a baby is still considered stillborn when the mother is 20 weeks or greater. So once you reach 20 weeks gestational age or greater, and you lose your baby, a woman's going to have to deliver the baby as if the baby was alive, normal process, and that's considered a stillborn child. Um, Another fact is one in every 160 babies are stillborn. What's my point of sharing these statistics with you? It's the fact that this is a very common thing. This is a thing that happens to women and families every single day. And that's the reason that I created Olivia's Herd. Before I go into what Olivia's Herd is and who we are, I wanted to take the time to share my own story. So let me go back. In 2017, I was pregnant with my first daughter. She's now 4 years old, going on 40, but that's another story. But in 2017, I had my first daughter. And when I was pregnant with her, my husband and I were falsely accused of 4 felony crimes. And as a result, we were incarcerated. We were arrested and we went to jail. And we were in jail for roughly, I'll say no more than about 48 hours. I was 4 months pregnant at the time. My attorneys came and, did what attorneys do, and, we were released. But it wouldn't be another several months before we were able to go before a judge, and a judge to hear the facts of the case and to dismiss and throw the case out. It didn't stop there. It was another couple months before we were able to get our records expunged, to where we can go on and rebuild and start living our lives again. I share that with you because during my first pregnancy, I was very unhappy, I was very stressed out, and I was depressed because of all the things that we were going through. And because of the situation, the false charges, it caused us to be homeless. And we were homeless for about 11 months total, before we were able to move into stable housing and, like I said before, go on with our lives. When women, we aspire to be wives, we aspire to be mothers especially because it's a natural thing for us. We're naturally nurturers, and this is just something that we look forward to being. And maybe not every woman wants to be a mom, but generally this is one of the things that we look forward to and we're excited about when it happens. So for me, my first pregnancy was so rough, and I wasn't in my own home, in the comfort of my own home, to be able to nest and buy the baby clothes and prepare for such a beautiful blessing to come. And so when we were ready, we definitely wanted to expand our family again. But the other reason, and a big reason why I wanted to have another child, is because I wanted to experience a normal pregnancy. I wanted to be in my own bed and not in a hotel, or not even sleeping in my car at times. But I wanted to experience a normal pregnancy and, be able to have baby showers and decorate the room and all of that. So in October of 2019, when we found out that we were pregnant with our second, I was so excited. Like, I was on cloud 9. My pregnancy with Olivia was pretty much normal up until 2020 because that's when a global pandemic happened. So, I had morning sickness, the normal things that, common things, I should say, that women deal with pregnancy. Um, Other than that, very normal, healthy pregnancy. Um, when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, um, things got a little bit different. And my husband was no longer allowed to come with me to appointments. Some of my appointments were no longer in person; they were virtual. So things began to look different. Well, we had made it up to 36 weeks, so that's about roughly 9 months pregnant. Um, they consider you to be full term when 37 weeks or beyond, but we had made it to 36 weeks. So I was so excited because I had learned from my first pregnancy that at 36 weeks is the countdown. It's the final 4 weeks of your pregnancy. And literally the baby could come at any time. So I remember getting up that morning. This was June the 9th when we had our 36-week appointment. My daughter's due date was July the 10th or July 6th of 2020. But anyway, we got up let me back up. That night before, everything was normal. I felt my daughter moving. In fact, she kicked so hard that my oldest daughter at the time, she was 2 years old, she felt her kick and was like, "Mommy, she hit me," and she punched my stomach. And I remember just being so tickled by that, calling my mom, and we laughing about it and going to sleep. So I went to bed early in anticipation for this appointment. And then during the latter stages of my pregnancy, I did not get a lot of good rest. So this night was really strange because I got like the best sleep that I probably had in months. And so I woke up and I had set an alarm, woke up and started getting dressed, started getting my daughter ready to go head to our appointment. And I didn't remember feeling my daughter move. But again, at that point, I'm not thinking nothing of it. I actually ate a snack I think I drank some lemonade or had some crackers or something. But at that point, I'm not thinking that anything's wrong still. So we're driving to the doctor's office, and because of the pandemic, my medical team was displaced, if you will. So we had to drive to Kennesaw, Georgia, which is about a 45 minutes hour drive from our house. So we're on the drive, and I remember saying to my husband that I didn't remember feeling the baby move as of yet. And so he reached over and kind of shook my stomach, and we just both of us just thought that she was asleep. So we didn't think nothing of it. So we arrived at the doctor's office, and we're early. So I'm sitting there in the car for a few minutes, and I decided that I was going to go in, but I was still a little bit early. So my husband asked, did he want me to drive me to the front door of the building? I was like, no, I think I'll walk, because it was a little bit of ways. So I'm walking, just taking in fresh air, still not thinking of nothing. To be honest with you, looking back, the whole vibe of that day felt differently, or those moments. But again, I don't know. We're not thinking anything of it. So walk in, I'm still early, so instead of immediately checking in, I sit down on the chair, and I'm just sitting there. And I remember finally this guy walking in and or walking by saying, "Congratulations." You say thank you and just keep it moving. So I check in, and I walk back to the waiting area for my OBs, and they're so familiar with me because they took care of me for my entire pregnancy with my daughter, Zoe. So at this point, I'm on a first name basis. So I remember, with my first daughter, my first pregnancy, and even with this pregnancy with Olivia, how they will always ask you, when's the last time you felt the baby move? And so you don't really think anything of it. You just answer the question because you just figure it's just something that they're asking. And so remembering that, and that's something that they always ask, I told the nurse when she was getting my vitals, the preliminary things, that I didn't remember feeling my daughter move that morning. And so she joked and she was like, that's because there's twins in there. So we just kind of laughed it off. I'm like, no, it's just one. But then she said, okay, I'll let Stacy know. Stacy was my OB, and she delivered Zoe, and she was going to be delivering this second baby. And so went in my room. She comes in. She's checking my cervix to see how far I've dilated, and I think at that point it was pretty normal, 1 or 2, whatever it's supposed to be. We were laughing and joking. We're talking about nails, and then she's like, "Okay, well, before we go on to the next thing that we need to do, I'm going to put you on a monitor for a little while." And so I walk across the hall, and the same nurse that got my vitals checked me in. I lay on the table, and she's putting the monitor on my stomach, trying to find the baby's heartbeat. And so I'm not thinking anything of it. In fact, I'm so nonchalant at this point, I'm like probably on my phone. And so I just hear the monitor. To me, it sounds like a microphone, like somebody's rubbing the top of a microphone. So she's like rubbing it around my stomach, trying to find it. And so in my mind, I'm like, maybe she'll know what the hell she's doing. And so then she says, well, let me go get Raquel. And so again, I'm still not thinking anything of it, but I did think, I'm like, who the hell is Raquel? Because that's not someone that I've seen before. So I'm still sitting there, again, not thinking anything of it whatsoever. When Stacy walks in, I'm like, oh shit. I knew something was wrong. So she walks in and she says something to Raquel, their medical talk, whatever. And so she put some more gel on my stomach. I think they were like, let's get this other machine or whatever. I think at that point they had already knew, but they didn't want to tell me until they were, I guess, for sure. So she's putting the monitor on my stomach, and then she turns to me and she says, Alicia, I'm sorry, but I can't find a heartbeat. I lost my fucking mind. Like, I lost it. And so I'm screaming and I'm yelling and I'm saying, call my husband. And I was so afraid because my daughter was in the car with my husband because he couldn't come in. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm like telling him to call my husband. I think I don't know who called him, to be honest with you, but he got called. And so one of the other doctors or nurse practitioners went out to get him. And so he's coming in, and at the same time he's coming in, Dr. Lee, another MD in the office, comes in and is doing the scan. And so he does the scan and he asked me, when's the last time you felt her move? I answer, which was the night before, and he confirms that there is no heartbeat. And so he says to me, by looking at the fluid around her, that he knows it's something that had to happen within the last 24 hours. And at that time, you're hearing this, but you're just like all over the place. So then they gave us a choice. I had the choice to go to the hospital right then to have my baby, or go home and go to the hospital the next day. Like, kind of fucking choice is that? But that's the choice that I had. So um, we decided that we were going to go to the hospital then to just go ahead and get it over with, go ahead and deliver her. So we had to go back to our house first to make provisions for my daughter. Um, so my sister came, and when I was at my house, I went into what would have been my daughter's nursery, and of course, completely distraught. And I am deciding if I was going to take some clothes for her to put her on some clothes that we had bought for her. But then I decided against it because I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't know how big she's going to be. Like, I don't know anything. So we literally just went. Like, neither one of us packed a bag or anything. No changing clothes, no nothing. So I arrive at the hospital, and it's like probably the hardest thing that I knew to date that I've had to do. But walking in, holding my husband's hand, we're both quiet. But as you're walking in, people are saying congratulations because they assume you're going in, you're going to have a baby, but not knowing that our baby was already dead. Excuse me. So we walk in, and all of my children were born at Northside Hospital, Atlanta. And so we are in the hospital, and I'm sitting down. I wasn't even in the waiting room for 5 minutes, and I got to give Northside props for that. My doctor had called ahead, and they made sure to come get me like right away. And so I really appreciate that because it was so hard. Literally sitting right next to me were two other women who pregnant with their bags and their significant others getting ready to have their baby, but my baby was already dead, was already gone. So we get in the back into the room, and the nurse comes in, Kelsey. She's the sweetest person ever. She's the first person that came in to talk to us, for what we were about to do. And so we're asking questions. Well, not really at that point. She's explaining a lot and maybe a couple questions. But I had asked her, was she going to hook me up to the monitor? Because that's what I remember they do from my first pregnancy. And she said that she wasn't going to because she didn't want to put me through that, but she would if I wanted to. And I was like, no, that's okay. And then I had asked about having another ultrasound done because when we were on the way to the hospital, what I didn't know was what I mistaken for movement. I thought that Olivia was moving, and I just thought that they had it all wrong. But what was happening was my body was already contracting. So those were contractions that I was feeling. And so I wanted to have another ultrasound because I just thought that maybe by some miraculous miracle, my daughter was okay. And so she said, of course, I'll get somebody in here who can do an ultrasound for you if that's what you want. So when the doctor comes in, he's like, hi, Miss Saunders, I'm Dr. Vals. I hear you want to have another ultrasound done. And so I hung my head, and I just shook and I said no. And he said, no, if that's what you want, that's what we're going to do. Because if it was me, I would. And I just lost my mind and start crying all over again. Because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting him to be really callous because he's in the medical field, and I'm sure this is something that they see all the time. But he was the furthest from that. So did another ultrasound, and he explained that, he confirmed that there was no heartbeat. And he explained that due to the roundness of Olivia's head, that's how he could tell that it just happened, that it's something that just happened within the past 24 hours. And there was a lot of fluid, the fluid level, and there was a lot of fluid surrounding her, which was another indication of a otherwise healthy pregnancy, or that she wasn't in distress or anything like that. So It was time. It was time to do the hardest thing that I ever thought that I would have to do. So they had to soften my cervix first, and then they had to induce me. I had to get the epidural, um, and then after that, um, it was a waiting game. Um, so after I was dilated enough, they come in and they're like, it's time. And me and my husband are both like, already. We asked them already. It's like so soon, but it really hadn't been. It just felt like that. It literally had been probably overnight and some into the next morning. Um, but we just weren't ready for what we knew was to come. So I was so afraid because with my first daughter, Zoe didn't want to come out. She didn't want to come out. She would go in, come out, and go back in. And so I had to do a lot of hard laboring with Zoe for my first. And I just thought, was it going to be that way again? For a child that I knew that I didn't get to keep. So, fortunately, after one or two pushes, Olivia came out. And so um, she came out and they placed her on my stomach. And I remember telling them to not turn her around yet because I wasn't ready to look her in her face. Sorry. But they had confirmed, Stacy confirmed that she was in fact, of course, stillborn. But what happened to her? She had a cord accident, and that's what they were telling me at the doctor's office, that it's more than likely a cord accident, but there's no way to tell or confirm until I deliver. Olivia had gotten her biblical cord wrapped around her foot and in a knot, and of course that cut off her oxygen supply. Um, my husband was even nervous because I remember them asking before, did he want to cut the cord, and they're like, you don't have to make the decision right now. You can make a game time decision. And so he did. He cut the cord, and he was, of course, the first one to see her and hold her, and they cleaned her up and do all the things they do. Um, and then I held her, which I was so nervous to do, but I didn't want to regret not holding her and not touching her. So I did hold her. I kissed her. My husband did a lot more. He was over there when they were giving her a bath, and he held her and took selfies and all those memorable things with her. And I held her a couple times. And the next day, the chaplain for Northside Hospital came in and did a bedside baptism with us. And what makes this so extra hard is the fact that because we were in the middle of a pandemic, I couldn't have anybody else in the room with me besides my husband. That like ate my parents alive. My parents live out of state, and they came in, and my mom especially couldn't even be in the hospital with me, and that just broke her down. So they had to watch this baptism and see pictures and all of that virtually of Olivia. So I had a baptism for her with my parents on FaceTime. And then we spent a couple more hours with her, and then we left the hospital. And when we left the hospital, we left with a survivor's guide and a box with all her personal belongings. So cold, and because you want to leave with your baby, but you're literally walking out with just a box and a book. But almost 2 years later, I'm grateful for that survivor's guide and the box with her belongings. Um, Northside did a maternity shoot with her, um, in addition to the pictures that we took ourselves of her. So I am extremely grateful for that, to have those memories to be able to look back on. Um, and definitely grateful for the survivor guide that I had, because you don't know where to go. If you never experienced something like this, it's like, what's next? Life still goes on, but you still have this shattered heart. Um, People are still expecting a baby when you're that far along, and now you have to tell people that there is no baby. Um, and so I wanted to create something to help other women. So on the book that they gave and on the boxes, the box with Olivia's things, it was elephants. And so I wonder, I'm like, what's the story with these elephants? And I didn't even find out right away. In fact, it was like 2 months later where I'm having a bout of grief. Like I'm just controlling, I mean, crying uncontrollably and nonstop. One of my friends, she was so concerned about me. Like she's Googling, trying to find somebody to call and to talk to me. Ironically, she stumbles upon Northside, um, and Northside has this whole bereavement center, palliative care, for mothers who go through this and families that go through the stillborn and loss of a child. And so she contacted them and she got Tina. Tina's one of the great women. She's actually the one who brought the pictures, to our room of Olivia that they had took, and edited and all that stuff for us. And so really grateful for her. But she got in contact with her and she calls me. And Tina's like literally on the phone with me for 45 minutes, like just listening to me and talking to me. And I appreciate that. But in that conversation, I asked her, like, what's the significance with the elephants? And so she explained to me, and since then, I've, of course, done my own research. But what she explained to me is that when elephants lose a baby, the mother literally lays with the baby for like days on end sometimes. And the rest of the elephants in the herd circle around her, and they even lay their trunks on her. And I, of course, watched my own videos and did my own research because I was just so fascinated to learn how much elephants are like us, in this process. And so that's where the name comes from. Of course, Olivia, my daughter, and then the herd piece from the inspiration behind elephants. And so I wanted to create my own herd, if you will, or community, like I refer to it, to where I can reach back and surround other women that have gone through what I've gone through, because it's not something that you will ever get over. I don't care what anybody tells you, you will never get over the loss of a child. The pain will always be there. My pain is with me now, but the reality is, it has lessened over time. We're talking June, we're in 2022, so in June, will be 2 years, 2 year anniversary of my daughter's transition. But the pain is still there. It's not as intense, it is not as great, but it's there. And I still have days where I'm no good because I mourn the loss of my daughter and the what ifs and the life that I was supposed to have. In other videos, I'm going to break down and explain and share my personal journey, for what it was like in those months after, those days, the weeks, and the months after, my triggers, like what it would be like for me to see other babies and all of that. Because the reality is, it doesn't just stop there. This is a journey that you now have to walk on and you now have to navigate. And I just wanted to create a community for other women who have gone through the same thing, for us to circle around and reach back and support each other. Because the reality is, it's going to be somebody else. It's going to happen again. And I just wanted to be able to create a support system for other women who have gone through this, to let you know that you are not alone. So please like this video, share this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos. Um, Drop in the comments. Please drop in the comments if you've gone through this. Inbox me, email me. If you've gone through this, if you need support, if you just need somebody to talk to, because that's what it's about, reaching back and helping somebody else. And what better way to honor my daughter than doing this? So thank you for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. And if there's somebody out there that has gone through this, you've lost a baby, and you need somebody to talk to, I'm here for you. Comment again, and let's just surround each other and help each other on this journey. I'm Joy, and thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Take care.